During Christmas dinner, I accidentally overheard my daughter-in-law whispering to her father, "We'll move this old man to a nursing home, and you'll live with us." I was paralyzed with shock, but I just smiled. I let them enjoy their victory, packed my bags, and disappeared. A few days later, I had 93 missed calls. You won't believe what I did. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The turkey needed 5 more minutes. I checked the thermometer again, then adjusted the oven temperature down slightly. Perfectionism had ruled my kitchen for 40 years, first cooking for my parents, then for myself after they passed. Tonight mattered more than most. Christmas Eve dinner with my son. I should have noticed it when Jared walked through the door. The way he wouldn't meet my eyes. The way Della swept past my offered embrace like I was the help, not the homeowner. Her father, Frank, followed, extending his hand with the grip of someone appraising property, not greeting family. "Quite a place you've got here, Morris." Frank's gaze traveled across the crown molding. The original hardwood my parents had refinished in 1985. Original floors? "My parents bought it in 1982, I said, guiding them toward the dining room. "I grew up in this house. Real estate in this neighborhood has really appreciated." Frank nodded slowly, his eyes calculating something I couldn't yet name. Della was already examining the table settings, adjusting a fork here, repositioning a wine glass there. "You use the everyday china?" "It's Christmas Eve," I replied evenly. "I thought we'd keep it comfortable." She made a small sound. Not quite disapproval, not quite acknowledgement. Jared stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets, studying the floor. "How's the logistics company treating you?" I asked him directly, trying to pull my son into conversation. "Fine." His answer came quick and flat. "Busy season. You mentioned some financial issues last month when we talked on the phone. Did that situation improve?" "We're handling it." Jared shifted his weight, still avoiding my gaze. "Jared's doing great," Della interjected, her tone dismissing my question entirely. "We're doing great. Everything's under control." I retrieved the turkey, carved it with the precision I'd taught myself from YouTube videos years ago, and brought the platter to the table. Steam rose from the golden skin. I'd timed it perfectly. Della cut into her portion, chewed once, then set down her fork. "It's a bit dry, Morris. You should have taken it out earlier." "It's been resting for 20 minutes, I said, keeping my voice steady. "That's the proper time." "If you say so." She reached for her wine glass. The meal continued in fragments. I passed dishes, poured wine, attempted conversation that died in short responses. Frank kept looking around the dining room, noting details, the built-in hutch, the chandelier my mother had loved, the bay window overlooking the street. "This old house needs so much work," Della commented, gesturing vaguely at the walls. "The paint's chipping in the hallway. The bathroom fixtures are ancient." Frank agreed immediately. "These old places require constant maintenance, expensive maintenance." Jared said nothing. He'd mastered silence, I realized. 5 years of living under my roof, paying no rent, contributing nothing to utilities or groceries, and he'd perfected the art of disappearing into himself. I'd let them stay after Jared lost his apartment. "Temporary," he'd said, "just until we get back on our feet." That was 5 years ago. Della moved in 3 months later. They'd occupied the entire second floor, bedroom, bathroom, the spare room that became Della's home office. I'd asked for nothing, expected nothing, believed family helped family. After dinner I stood and began collecting plates. Della waved her hand dismissively. "We'll clean up later, Morris." "Just sit down. I don't mind." I stacked dishes carefully, needing the motion, the routine. Something felt wrong. Had felt wrong all evening, though I couldn't articulate what. In the kitchen, I ran water into the sink, added soap, began the familiar rhythm of washing while the others' voices drifted from the living room. Casual conversation about nothing, weather, television shows, neighborhood gossip. I was measuring coffee grounds when Della's voice dropped to a whisper, but not low enough. "We'll move the old man into a senior home, and you'll live here with us." I froze. The coffee scoop trembled in my hand. Frank responded, his voice carrying just enough for me to catch it. "When are you planning this?" "Soon." Della's whisper held satisfaction, certainty. "Early next year. He won't fight it. He's too soft. We've been living here free for 5 years. He'll sign whatever we put in front of him." My fingers tightened on the counter edge. The kitchen felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. "The house must be worth $500,000 now," Frank added. "This neighborhood's prime real estate." at least, and it's just sitting here, wasted on him. He doesn't even use the third floor anymore. I set the coffee scoop down with deliberate care, turned off the water. Each movement required concentration, control. I didn't burst into the living room, didn't confront them with shaking fists and righteous anger. That's what they expected. Weakness masked as emotion, easily manipulated. Instead, I walked through the kitchen doorway, through the dining room, up the stairs. My footsteps made no sound on the carpet runner. At my bedroom door, I paused, listening. Their conversation had shifted to something meaningless, a television show, someone's opinion about something trivial. I closed my door, sat on the edge of my bed, stared at the wall where my parents' wedding photo hung. 1960, my mother in white, my father in his army uniform. 5 years. They'd lived here 5 years. And now I understood. I wasn't family. I was an obstacle, a problem to be solved, warehoused, erased from my own home. But obstacles, I realized as I sat in the darkness listening to the house settle around me, can become immovable. I didn't sleep, couldn't. I sat on that bed until the house went quiet. Della's laugh fading, Frank's heavy footsteps on the stairs to the guest room, Jared's door closing with the soft click of a man avoiding confrontation even in how he shut doors. I sat in the darkness and calculated. The shock had burned away overnight, leaving something harder behind. Clarity. I'd spent hours reviewing everything. 5 years of free housing, unpaid utilities, my groceries feeding them, my patience absorbing Della's disrespect. The accounting was brutal and precise. $70,000 minimum, probably closer to 85 if I factored in the wear on appliances, the increased water bills, the heating costs for the entire second floor. They wanted me in a facility, wanted my house, wanted me gone so they could live in what my parents had built, what I'd maintained, what belonged to me alone. By the time dawn broke through my window, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I pulled my largest suitcase from the closet, not frantically, methodically. I'd been a teacher for 30 years. I knew how to organize, prioritize, execute. Clothing first, a week's worth, maybe 2. I folded each item carefully, creating neat stacks in the suitcase. Toiletries from the bathroom, moving quietly, though they were all still asleep. Back to the bedroom for my laptop, phone charger, the adapter I used for presentations back when I still guest lectured occasionally. Then the important items. I paused at my dresser where my parents' wedding photo sat, into the suitcase, my teaching awards from the bookshelf, not for sentiment, but because they represented who I was. Morris Bell, history department chair, 30 years at West Philadelphia High School, someone who understood strategy, patterns, the long game of cause and effect. I moved through the hallway, listening. Frank's snoring rattled from the guest room. Della and Jared's door remained closed. In my home office, I unlocked the filing cabinet where I kept critical documents. House deed, original from 1982 when my parents purchased the property. My father's signature still clear, my mother's beside it. Then mine from 2003 when they passed and left it solely to me. No siblings to share inheritance. No claims from anyone but Morris Aaron Bell. I pulled bank statements, insurance papers, my passport, though I hadn't traveled in years. Each document went into a folder I labeled important in my own steady handwriting. The folder went into the suitcase. In the kitchen, I wrote a note on the pad we kept by the phone. My handwriting remained perfectly controlled, each letter formed with deliberate precision. Gone to visit an old friend for a few days? Don't worry. The lie came easily. There was no old friend. Most colleagues from my teaching days had retired to Florida or Arizona, chasing warmth and grandchildren. The few who'd stayed in Philadelphia had passed on. But Jared and Della didn't know that. They'd never asked about my life beyond how it served theirs. I placed the note on the kitchen table where they'd see it. Took one last look around, not sentimentally, but cataloging details the way I'd taught students to analyze historical documents. What did the evidence reveal? A house well maintained, a kitchen cleaned after last night's dinner, dishes drying in the rack because I'd finished them before coming upstairs. Everything in its place, orderly, controlled, like me. I carried both suitcases to my car, a reliable 2015 Toyota Camry with 87,000 miles. Made 2 trips, loading them into the trunk quietly. The neighborhood was dark, silent. Christmas morning hadn't yet arrived for the families around me, children still sleeping, believing in magic and morning surprises. I started the engine and drove away without looking back at the house in the rearview mirror. The Holiday Inn Express near Philadelphia International Airport was exactly what I needed. Anonymous, impersonal, temporary. I pulled into the parking lot as the sky lightened from black to gray. The desk clerk looked barely awake. "How many nights?" "7, I said. "I'll pay cash." She blinked. "We'll need an ID and credit card for incidentals." "Here's an extra 100 for incidentals." I placed 5 20s on the counter alongside my driver's license. "I prefer cash." She processed it without further questions. People paid cash for motels all the time. Nobody asked why. The room was exactly as I'd expected. Beige walls, cheap landscape art, queen bed with a generic floral comforter, small desk, television bolted to the dresser. Perfect. This wasn't home. This was a command post. I unpacked with the same methodical precision I'd used packing. Clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, laptop on the desk. I pulled out the motel notepad and wrote, "Today, rest and plan. Tomorrow, find attorney. Next steps, valuation, eviction notice, sale." Each item was a step. Each step was progress. Each move was mine to make. I sat on the bland motel bed and opened my laptop. The house was solely in my name. I'd verified that 3 times in the documents. Jared and Della had lived rent-free for 5 years. No written lease existed, no tenant agreement, no rental contract. Under Pennsylvania law, I had options. I typed into the search bar, "Real estate attorney, Philadelphia property law." 17 results appeared. I started with the first one, reading reviews carefully. "Excellent in property disputes. Helped me evict problem tenants. Knows Pennsylvania housing law inside and out." By noon, I'd have a short list. By tomorrow, I'd have representation. They wanted me gone. They'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I woke early the day after Christmas. The motel room looked the same. Beige walls, cheap landscape print, but I felt different. The list I'd made the night before sat on the desk. Item 1, attorney. I picked up my laptop and started searching. Patricia Wells, attorney at law, real estate and property rights, 20 years experience, bar association member in good standing. Client reviews praised her efficiency, her knowledge of Pennsylvania tenant law, her ability to navigate complex family property disputes. I read every review twice, checking for patterns. No complaints about delayed responses. No mentions of cases lost due to poor preparation. I called her office at 8:30. Patricia Wells Law Group. The receptionist's voice was professional, slightly hurried. "I need a consultation about property rights," I said. "Today, if possible. We're quite booked before New Year's." "I own a house." I kept my voice firm but polite. "Family members are living there without agreement. I want to sell. This is urgent." A pause, keyboard clicking. "Let me check with Ms. Wells. Can you come at 11? "I'll be there." I drove to Center City, parked in a garage near her office building. The suite was on the 4th floor. Modern space with law books lining one wall. Mahogany desk positioned to catch morning light. Framed credentials confirming everything the reviews had promised. Patricia Wells was in her mid-40s. Gray suit, focused eyes that assessed me quickly and thoroughly. "Mr. Bell, please sit. Tell me about your property situation." I explained the facts. Only facts. I owned the house, inherited from my parents, deed exclusively in my name. My son and daughter-in-law had lived there 5 years. Rent-free, no written lease, no tenant agreement. I wanted to sell. "They've paid nothing in 5 years? Patricia's pen moved across her notepad. "Not $1. "And you're the sole owner? No co-signers on the deed?" "Correct. My parents left it to me when they passed. No siblings, no other claims." Patricia nodded slowly. "Then legally, you're in an excellent position. Pennsylvania law is clear on this. As the property owner, you have full authority to sell. However, because they've established residency, even without a formal lease, you'll need to provide 30 days written notice." "How official does it need to be?" "I recommend courier delivery with signature confirmation." She pulled out a template from her desk drawer. "Establishes legal timeline. No room for claims they never received it. Do it. Whatever makes this ironclad." She quoted her consultation fee, $500. I wrote the check without hesitation. She provided a folder containing Pennsylvania tenant law summaries, her business card, and a draft of the notice she'd prepare. "I can have this ready by tomorrow," Patricia said. "When would you like it delivered?" "December 31st. Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "New Year's Eve?" "Yes." She didn't ask why. Professional discretion, I realized. was worth the consultation fee alone. In my car, I called the realtor Patricia had recommended, Kevin Brennan, 30 years experience, specialized in West Philadelphia properties. "I can come look at the property Monday morning," Kevin said, "but I'll need access. The current occupants don't know it's being evaluated. Can you meet me there at 9 a.m.? They'll be at work." "That's unusual. I own it. They're being evicted. This is legal." A pause. "All right, 9 a.m. Monday. Text me the address." Throughout these calls, my phone had buzzed repeatedly in my pocket, Jared's name appearing on the screen. 5 calls during my attorney meeting, 7 more during lunch, 3 while I spoke with Kevin. I glanced at each one, silenced it, continued with my tasks. By evening, I'd decided the motel wouldn't work long term. Too temporary, too exposed. I needed a proper base of operations. I drove to University City, found a furnished studio apartment advertised online. The landlord met me at 6 o'clock, middle-aged woman, practical demeanor, asking few questions. $1,200 monthly, first and last month up front. I wrote a check for $2,400, signed the lease standing at the kitchen counter. She handed me keys. "Move in whenever you're ready." "Now works fine." I drove back to the motel, checked out, loaded my suitcases into the Camry. Then I made one more trip, back to the house, my house. I waited until evening, after 7 o'clock, when Jared and Della would both be at work. Their cars were absent from the driveway. I pulled into my usual spot, unlocked the front door with my key. The house was silent. Dishes in the sink, Della's laptop on the dining table, mail stacked unopened on the counter. They'd made themselves at home, as always. I went straight to my office, filing cabinet, top drawer, the original house deed from 1982, my father's signature, my mother's beside it, both still clear after 42 years. Bank statements showing every deposit, every utility payment, tax records proving continuous ownership, my parents' death certificates from 2003, their marriage certificate, documentation of inheritance. I photographed each document with my phone, then packed the originals carefully in a folder. In the living room, I retrieved family photo albums from the shelves, pictures of my parents, of me growing up in this house, of Jared as a child before Della entered his life and changed him into someone I barely recognized. Total time in the house, 35 minutes. I locked the door behind me, drove straight to University City, carried everything up to my new apartment. Small space, one room serving as bedroom and living area, kitchenette along one wall, bathroom barely large enough for shower and toilet, but clean, quiet, mine. I unpacked methodically. Clothes in the closet, documents in the desk drawer, laptop on the small table, everything organized, everything controlled. My phone buzzed again. Jared, call number 23 since morning. I watched it ring, let it go to voicemail, then turn the phone face down on the nightstand. Let him wonder. Let them both wonder. Tomorrow, Patricia would file the official notice. Monday, Kevin would evaluate the property. The machinery I'd set in motion was now operational and irreversible. They wanted me gone. Now I was gone, but I was taking my property with me. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they intensified. I woke December 28th to 17 missed calls from overnight. Jared mostly, a few from Della, one from a number I didn't recognize, probably Frank, trying a different angle. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and made coffee. Ignoring them was easier than I expected. Each ignored call felt like reclaiming something they'd stolen. My peace, my authority, my home. I'd spent 5 years answering every request, every demand, accommodating every criticism. Now they could wait. I established a routine in my new apartment. Morning coffee while reviewing the legal documents Patricia had sent. Pennsylvania tenant law, eviction procedures, property owner rights, afternoon research on comparable home sales in West Philadelphia. My neighborhood had appreciated significantly. Houses like mine, 3 stories with original features, were selling for $500,000 or more. Evening walks through University City, students returning after the holiday break, cafes reopening, life continuing normally while mine underwent complete transformation. The text messages arrived throughout the day, each one more desperate than the last. Deck 28, 9 a.m. Dad, where are you? Call me back. Deck 28, 2 p.m. This isn't funny. We're worried. Deck 29, 10 a.m. Did we do something wrong? Deck 29, 3 p.m. You took the house papers. Why? Deck 30, 8 a.m. Answer your phone. This is serious. I read each one dispassionately, then deleted it. Serious. Now it was serious. Not when they plotted to warehouse me in some facility, only when they were losing control. Day 1, 23 calls. Day 2, 35 calls. Day 3, 35 more. 93 total by the evening of December 30th. I counted each one. Patricia emailed that afternoon confirming the notice was prepared. Ready for delivery. Confirm courier address and date. I typed back, deliver December 31st, 10 a.m. Require signature confirmation. Her response came immediately. Confirmed. Happy New Year, Mr. Bell. That evening I decided it was time. I sat at my desk, phone on speaker, notepad ready to document anything important they said. When the next call came, Jared's name lighting the screen, I pressed accept. Dad, his voice exploded through the speaker, loud enough to make me pull back slightly. Where are you? What are you doing? Why did you take the papers? I kept my voice cold, measured. I heard your conversation on Christmas. Every word. Silence. Pure silence. I could hear him breathing, could imagine his face draining of color. What conversation? His attempt at confusion was pathetic. The one where Della told Frank you'd move me into a nursing home so he could live in my house. Dad, Della's voice cut in, sharp and high. She'd grabbed the phone. Morris, listen, you misunderstood. Dad was joking around. We all had too much wine. It was just holiday talk. I was completely sober. I picked up my pen, made a note of her excuse for potential legal reference. And I heard every detail, the timeline, your confidence, I wouldn't fight it, the word you used, soft. We'd never actually do that. Her voice climbed higher. We love you. This is our family. We'd never hurt you like that. Your family. I underlined the words I'd written. Joking, wine, misunderstanding, classic manipulation tactics. My house. You can't just... You'll receive official notice, I interrupted. Check your mail tomorrow. Wait, what does that mean? What notice? You wanted me gone. Now I'm gone, but I'm taking my property with me. Jared's voice returned, desperate now. Dad, please, let's talk about this face to face. We can work this out. We're done talking. Your attorney can speak with mine. Attorney? His voice cracked on the word. What attorney? Dad, please. I hung up, set the phone down. My hand was steady. My breathing was normal. 5 years of their demands, silenced with one button press. The phone immediately started ringing again. I turned it off completely. December 31st arrived cold and clear. I didn't go to the house to witness the delivery, but the courier service sent confirmation at 10:47 a.m. Package delivered, signed by Jared Bell. I imagined the scene, the doorbell. Jared opening the door, perhaps still in his pajamas. He'd always been slow to rise. The courier with a clipboard and thick envelope. The return address, Patricia Wells, attorney at law. His confusion as he signed. Della reading over his shoulder. Their faces changing as they opened it and read, Notice is hereby given that the property located at address, West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, will be sold by sole owner Morris Aaron Bell. Current occupants are required to vacate premises within 30 days of this notice, per Pennsylvania landlord-tenant law. Failure to vacate by January 30th, 2025 will result in formal eviction proceedings. The legal language, the deadline, the attorney's letterhead, everything I'd built quietly over the past week, now impossible to ignore. I poured myself coffee and read my own copy of the notice, speaking the words aloud in my empty apartment. 30 days, that's more than they were going to give me. My phone, turned back on, showed 7 new missed calls, 4 from Jared, 3 from Della. I deleted the voicemails without listening. They'd had 5 years to treat me with respect, 5 years to contribute financially, 5 years to show gratitude for free housing in a neighborhood where rent would have cost them $3,000 monthly minimum. Instead, they'd planned to discard me like broken furniture, warehouse me in some facility while they claimed what my parents had built. Now they had 30 days to find somewhere else to plot their futures. I opened my calendar on my laptop. The next appointment was already scheduled. Kevin Brennan, property evaluation, January 2nd, 9 a.m., December 31st, last day of the year. They'd planned to start 2025 by erasing me from my own home. Instead, they'd start it knowing February would find them packing boxes and searching for apartments they'd actually have to pay for. I sat back in my chair, coffee warm in my hands, winter light coming through my studio window. The apartment was quiet. No Della's criticisms, no Jared's guilty silences, no Frank's calculating stares. Just silence and space and a lease in my name. The phone buzzed one more time. Jared, call number 94. I watched his name flash on the screen, counted to 10, then silenced it permanently. I had everything I needed now: legal authority, professional representation, documentation, and time. 30 days worth of countdown they couldn't stop. The war had officially begun, and I'd already won the first battle. New Year's Day passed quietly. I spent it in my apartment, reviewing Patricia's files on tenant law, preparing for whatever desperate move Jared and Della would make next. The move came January 2nd, via email from my attorney. Forwarding correspondence from opposing counsel, Patricia's message read. Attached was a single-page letter from the law office of David Chen. I read it twice. Equitable interest, verbal family agreement, long-term residency rights, creating property claims. Every phrase revealed their strategy. Make it sound official, hope I'd back down. I forwarded it to Patricia with one question. How worried should I be? Her response arrived in under 5 minutes. Not at all. The day after I drove to her office, Patricia had the opposing letter open on her desk, red pen marks covering half the page. Their attorney is claiming equitable interest based on verbal agreement and residency duration, she said without preamble. Can they prove any of that? Can they prove an agreement that doesn't exist? She tapped the letter. Pennsylvania requires written documentation for property claims, deeds, leases, contracts, something signed and recorded, verbal promises, legally worthless in property disputes. So we proceed as planned? Without hesitation, she pulled out a draft response. I'll send this today. Their claim is frivolous. You're the sole documented owner. They're tenants at will, meaning they occupy by your permission only. 5 years of free housing actually strengthens your position. It demonstrates your generosity and their complete dependency. I read her response. Clinical, precise, devastating. How long until they receive this? They'll have it by tomorrow. Then they'll realize their attorney gave them false hope. She closed the file. Morris, I've handled dozens of these cases. Family disputes over property. They always follow the same pattern. Emotional manipulation fails, so they try legal intimidation. It rarely works, especially when the owner has clean documentation like yours. I thanked her and left, feeling more confident than I had in days. Kevin Brennan called January 5th. Property evaluations scheduled for today. Meet me at the house at 10. I arrived early, let him in with my key. He moved through the rooms professionally, measuring, photographing, noting details on his tablet. Original crown molding, he said in the living room. These details add value. My father restored those in 1985, I told him. Took him 3 months. That history matters. Buyers appreciate maintained heritage properties. He examined the kitchen. Updated appliances, good condition throughout. We spent an hour walking every floor. When we finished, Kevin pulled up comparison data on his tablet. Market value, $420,000. Given the occupant situation, we might need to price slightly lower for quick sale, maybe $405 to $410. Evaluate it honestly, I said. I want fair market value, but I want to sell quickly. Serious buyers won't be deterred by temporary complications, Kevin assured me, especially with the legal notice already served. They'll know possession transfers vacant. The next day, my phone started ringing again. Not Jared this time, Della. The first voicemail was angry. You're being unreasonable. This is Jared's childhood home. The second, a few hours later, shifted. We have rights. Our attorney says so. You can't just throw us out. By evening, the tone had changed completely. Morris, please, can we talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding. January 7th brought more calls, more voicemails. Her voice progressively more desperate with each message. The final one came at 8 p.m. I'm begging you. Just meet with me. One conversation, please. I listened to the desperation in her voice and made a decision. Strategic meetings could be useful. They revealed what opponents were willing to concede, what arguments they thought might work. I texted back. Downtown Caf, Nero, tomorrow 2 p.m., 30 minutes. Short meeting, public place, my terms. January 8th, I arrived at the Caf early, ordered coffee, positioned myself at a corner table with clear view of the entrance. Della walked in 5 minutes late, eyes red from crying, makeup smudged. She sat across from me and immediately launched into her prepared speech. Frank pushed me into it. Her words came fast, overlapping. He kept saying we were stupid for not securing our future. I was scared, Morris. Scared about money, about Jared's job instability, about everything. You have to understand. I sipped my coffee, said nothing. It was just desperate talk. We never actually meant it. You misunderstood the context. I set down my cup. We love you. We'd never hurt you. This is family. We can work this out if you just... How many years have you lived with me rent-free? She stopped mid-sentence. Morris, that's not... Answer the question. How many years? Her voice dropped to barely audible. 5. 5 years. Not 1 cent in rent. I leaned forward slightly. I fed you, paid utilities, covered groceries, helped when Jared's paycheck didn't stretch. And how did you repay me? We made a mistake. Tears ran down her face. People make mistakes. You can't punish us forever for one conversation. I'm not punishing you. I stood, putting on my coat methodically. I'm removing you. There's a difference. Morris, please, where will we go? I picked up my keys. That's not my problem anymore. You'll regret this. Her voice rose as I walked toward the door. Jared will never forgive you. I glanced back over my shoulder without stopping. I can live with that. Outside, winter air hit my face. I walked 3 blocks before stopping. Behind me, Della remained in that cafe, crying into cold coffee, realizing tears changed nothing. My phone buzzed. Kevin, first showing scheduled January 12th, 9 a.m. Anticipate resistance? I typed back, guaranteed. His response came quickly. I'll prepare accordingly. I smiled slightly. They wanted to fight? I had professionals on my side. Attorney, realtor, documentation. They had desperation and a cheap lawyer. The war continued, but I'd already won the first battle. The day after the CAF meeting, their attorney made his next move. Patricia forwarded me the complaint. Jared and Della had filed with Philadelphia Housing Authority and City Council, claiming I was unlawfully evicting an elderly, vulnerable family member. I read it twice, then actually laughed. Elderly. I was 68, fully independent, and I owned the property. They weren't even trying to be accurate, just loud. I called Patricia immediately. How serious is this? Not at all. They're grasping. I heard papers rustling on her end. I'll file our response today with documentation. You're the property owner. Jared is 37 and employed. Proper notice was served. No legal violations occurred. This is harassment, not a legitimate complaint. Will it delay anything? No. City Council doesn't intervene in private property sales unless actual violations exist. This will be dismissed within a week. I thanked her and returned to my routine. Morning coffee, legal document review, evening walks. Structure kept me focused. January 11th, Kevin called. His voice was tight. Morris, I drove by the house this morning. There's trash on the porch, windows open in this weather. Place looks abandoned. I understood immediately. They're sabotaging the showing. That's my assessment. We have options. Postpone, confront them, or fix it ourselves. Fix it, whatever it costs. I'll need access early morning before they wake. I'll have a key waiting for you at your office within an hour, I said. Hire whoever you need. Make it presentable. This'll cost around $300 for emergency cleaning. Bill me directly. Just get it done. I drove to Kevin's office, dropped off my spare house key, then returned to my apartment. The plan was simple. Professional cleaning crew arrives at 6 a.m., works for 3 hours, finishes before the 9 o'clock showing. Jared and Della would wake to find their sabotage erased. January 12th arrived cold and clear. I drove to the house at 8:30, parking down the block to observe. The cleaning van was still there, crew loading final supplies. I walked up as they finished. The transformation was remarkable. Where garbage had been, order existed, windows closed and curtains open, surfaces wiped clean. The house looked cared for, maintained, valuable. Focused on visible areas like you asked, the crew supervisor told me. Living room, kitchen, bathrooms, everything presentable. Perfect, thank you. They left. I waited inside, checking details. Kevin arrived at 8:55 with a young couple, the Hendersons. He introduced them. Early 30s, professional attire, clearly pre-approved financing. Let's start with the first floor, Kevin began, slipping naturally into his realtor presentation. Original hardwood throughout, recently refinished. I positioned myself strategically, present enough to assert ownership but not intrusive. Let Kevin handle the professional elements while I embodied calm authority. We were upstairs examining the master bedroom when the front door slammed. Jared's voice carried up the stairs. What is going on here? His footsteps pounded toward us. He appeared in the hallway, face red, seeing strangers in what he considered his home. You can't just walk through our house. He looked from the Hendersons to Kevin to me. His expression changed when he recognized me. What are you doing here? I spoke calmly. This is my house, Jared. These are potential buyers. We're conducting a legal showing. You can't do this. We live here for 18 more days. Then you don't. I'm calling our lawyer. His voice rose higher. Do that. Meanwhile, you're disturbing a business transaction. Leave. This is harassment. You're trying to humiliate us. I'm trying to sell my property. You're the one making a scene. I pulled out my phone. One more word, and I'm calling police for disturbing the peace. This is your only warning. Jared looked at my phone, then at the Hendersons, watching uncomfortably. His jaw clenched. This isn't over, he said quietly, venomously. Yes, I replied. It is. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle windows. I turned to the Hendersons. I apologize for that disruption. As you can see from the legal documents my realtor provided, the current occupants have 30-day notice. This property will transfer with vacant possession guaranteed. Kevin smoothly continued the tour. Let me show you the third floor. Excellent potential for home office or guest suite. The showing lasted another 30 minutes. The Hendersons asked practical questions about utilities, property taxes, neighborhood schools. Kevin answered everything professionally. After they left, Kevin walked me to my car. That was intense, but they seemed genuinely interested, despite Jared's performance. Maybe because of it, showed them the occupant situation is real but manageable. You handled it perfectly. Calm, legal, in control. He checked his phone. I'll follow up with them this afternoon, get their feedback. I drove back to my apartment, checked email. Patricia had sent an update. City Council complaint dismissed. No basis for intervention. Kevin's text arrived at 3 p.m. Henderson's interested. Offer $395,000. Fast closing February 10th. Your call. I calculated quickly. $25,000 less than market value. The occupant discount. But cash. Quick closing, no contingencies. I typed back, accept it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Done. I'll draw up papers. I sat back in my chair. $395,000. After attorney fees and closing costs, roughly $380,000 clear. More than enough to restart my life. More than Jared and Della would ever see from me again. Kevin sent another message. Fair warning. Occupants have 18 days left. Expect more interference. I smiled slightly and typed, let them try. The machinery I'd set in motion was becoming irreversible. Buyer secured. Closing date set. Legal deadline approaching. Every piece aligned. Patricia texted, congratulations on the sale. Now we prepare for potential eviction resistance. Standard procedure. If they're not out by January 30th, we file for sheriff intervention. I saved her message. Added it to my growing documentation file. 43 documents now. Purchase agreements. Eviction notices. Attorney correspondence. Complaint filings, showing records. Jared's threat from the showing echoed in my mind. This isn't over. He was right, it wasn't. But the ending was already written. The days after the showing moved quickly. Kevin arranged a second viewing, without Jared's disruption this time, conducted while they were at work. 3 days later, on January 16th, his call came. Morris, good news. The Hendersons came back with $405,000. I paused, calculator already open on my desk. That's $10,000 more than their first offer. What changed? Second showing went smoother, and their broker confirmed the property's undervalued at $395. They don't want to lose it. I ran the numbers. Sale price minus realtor commission, attorney fees, closing costs. Net proceeds approximately $376,000. Enough to start fresh. More than enough. When can we close? February 10th work for you? Gives you breathing room after the eviction deadline? Perfect. Draw up the contracts. I hung up and updated my timeline document. January 30th, eviction. February 9 vacancy period. February 10th closing. Everything aligned. Everything proceeding exactly as planned. Kevin mentioned it casually 2 days later. Heard from a neighbor they've applied to 5 rental places this week. All rejections. Credit problems, apparently. I filed that information away. The financial noose was tightening around them, just as the calendar noose approached. January 19th evening, my phone rang. Della. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won. You think you're so righteous? Her voice was hard. No tears this time, pure anger. You're destroying your own son's life. I'm selling my property. That's not destruction. We'll tell everyone what you're really like. The threat came sharp and fast. Every former colleague, every neighbor. We'll post it everywhere. Social media, review sites. We'll make sure everyone knows you're a cruel, heartless. I interrupted, my voice cold. I have a recording of your Christmas conversation. Every word you and Frank said about putting me in a nursing home. Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. You're You're lying. You weren't recording. You think I wasn't prepared after overhearing that conversation? Pennsylvania is a two-party consent state for recordings, true, but it's my house. I can record conversations in my own property. The bluff felt smooth, practiced. Try destroying my reputation. See what happens to yours. Her voice shook. You can't. Test me, Della. This isn't over. But her voice had lost its edge. Yes, Della, it is. I hung up and immediately opened my voice memo app. The call I'd just had, that one was actually recorded. Her threats about destroying my reputation, captured digitally. I saved it carefully. Della threats, 11925 MP3. No recording of Christmas existed, but now I had something better. Proof of her harassment tactics. The next morning, January 20th, I was making coffee when my doorbell buzzed. The security camera showed Frank Torres at the building entrance, face red, fist raised toward the intercom button. I didn't answer. I picked up my phone and called the non-emergency police line. I have a former acquaintance making threatening appearances at my residence, I said calmly. He's connected to an ongoing eviction case. I'm concerned for my safety. The dispatcher took my information. 15 minutes later, a squad car pulled up. I watched from my window as two officers spoke with Frank. He gestured angrily, but eventually left. The officers came to my apartment. His name is Frank Torres, I explained. He's the father of my daughter-in-law. I'm in the process of evicting my son and his wife from my property, legal, through attorneys, and now family members are showing up trying to intimidate me. The officer took notes. Has he made direct threats? He was demanding I open the door, saying we need to settle this like men. I don't know him well. I felt threatened. Smart not to engage. We'll file a report. If he returns, call 911 immediately. They left. I received the police report via email the next day. Official documentation of harassment. I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. Harassment escalating. Documentation for file. Her response came quickly. Excellent. This demonstrates their intimidation pattern, strengthens our position if they attempt any legal appeals or claims of your misconduct. Keep documenting everything. I updated my case file. The folder had grown. Eviction notice, attorney correspondence, city council complaint and response, property evaluation, sale contract, Della's threat recording, police report about Frank, 43 documents total, each labeled and dated. Patricia's next email was brief. 8 days until deadline. Confirm sheriff escort for January 30th. I typed back, confirmed, I'll be ready. Her response, be prepared. This may not be easy. I stared at those words. Easy. Nothing about this had been easy, but it had been necessary. I closed my laptop and looked at my calendar. January 30th was circled in red. 8 days. 8 days until the machinery I'd set in motion would complete its cycle. The threatening calls had stopped after my bluff about the recording. Frank hadn't returned after the police visit. Even Jared had gone quiet. Kevin mentioned seeing him loading boxes into his car late one night, practicing for the inevitable. They were still in the house, but the fight had gone out of them. Not surrender exactly, more like resignation. The deadline approached like a tide, steady and unstoppable. 8 days became 7, 7 became 6. The final week before January 30th crawled with agonizing slowness. I didn't contact them, didn't drive past the house, didn't check in. The silence was strategic. Let them wonder if I'd softened, if I'd negotiate at the last minute. I wouldn't, but let them hope. Kevin provided occasional updates. Boxes visible through windows, rental truck reserved for the 29th, lights on late into the nights. They were packing, planning, hoping somehow the deadline wouldn't actually arrive. It would. January 29th arrived overcast and cold. I woke at 6, made coffee, showered, dressed carefully, khaki pants, button-down shirt, winter jacket, professional, appropriate. At 7:30, I drove to the courthouse. Deputy Sheriff Williams waited in the lobby, eviction order in hand, middle-aged, experienced, professional demeanor. Mr. Bell, ready to proceed? Yes. We walked to the parking lot. I'll meet you at the property. Follow my vehicle. I drove behind the marked sheriff's car, watching it navigate familiar streets toward my house, toward what had been my house, what would soon be mine again, briefly, before the Hendersons took possession. We arrived at 8:45 a.m. Jared's car sat in the driveway. No rental truck yet. I used my key to unlock the front door, not breaking in, entering my own property with legal authority. Inside, we found Jared and Della in the kitchen, surrounded by half-packed boxes and chaos. Della gasped when she saw the sheriff. Jared's face went pale. Deputy Williams presented the order formally. I'm Deputy Williams from the Sheriff's Office. This is an official court order requiring you to vacate these premises. You have until 6 p.m. today to remove your belongings. After that time, any remaining property becomes abandoned and may be disposed of by the owner. Jared turned to me, desperate. There has to be some mistake. No mistake, Williams said. This property owner filed proper eviction notice 30 days ago. The deadline has passed. You must leave. Dad, please, we're your family. Jared's voice broke. You can't do this. I stood in the doorway of the house I grew up in, looked at my son with eyes that showed no anger, no triumph, just finality. You made your choice that Christmas night. I heard every word. That was just talk. We were stressed. You planned to warehouse me like broken furniture, take my home, erase me from my own life. I kept my voice measured. I'm simply responding in kind. You wanted me gone. Now you're the ones leaving. Della's voice rose towards screaming. This is your son, your blood. How can you be so cold? I fed you for 5 years, sheltered you, helped with your debts, asked nothing except basic respect. We made one mistake. You made a calculated plan. There's a difference. Deputy Williams stepped forward. Ma'am, this doesn't change the legal situation. You need to start packing. I turned and walked out, got in my car, drove 2 blocks to a shopping center parking lot where I couldn't see the house but could receive updates. Kevin's texts arrived throughout the day. 10:17 a.m. Rental truck just pulled up. U-Haul, 20-footer. 11:43 a.m. They're loading furniture. Looks heavy. Della's dad is helping. 2:31 p.m. Lot of stuff still inside. Not sure they'll finish by 6. 4:28 p.m. Truck's pulling out. Looks full. They're leaving. At 5:45 p.m., I met Deputy Williams back at the house for final inspection. We walked through empty rooms littered with trash and debris, broken closet door in the bedroom, holes punched in walls, kitchen cabinet torn off its hinges. I photographed everything methodically. Seen this before, Williams said, shaking his head. People get angry when consequences arrive. You'll want these photos for repairs. We heard an engine outside. The rental truck was back. One final load. Della climbed out, saw us on the porch. You'll die alone and forgotten, she shouted from the driveway. That's what you chose. That's what you'll get. I watched her climb back into the truck, watched the tail lights disappear around the corner. Maybe, I said quietly to no one, but I'll die free of you. That's enough. Deputy Williams closed his notepad. All done. Tough situation. Family evictions are never easy. They stopped being family on Christmas Eve, I said. This is just paperwork catching up to reality. He handed me the official certification. Premises vacated, eviction complete, dated and signed. I locked the front door and drove back to my apartment. The next day, January 31st, I returned alone. No sheriff, no Kevin, just me and empty rooms. I walked slowly through spaces where I'd grown up, where my parents had lived, where Jared had been raised. The living room echoed. The kitchen felt vast. Upstairs, Jared's old bedroom, vacant. I should have felt something. Nostalgia, regret, triumph. Instead, I felt relief. This house held too many memories, good ones buried under recent betrayal. Selling it wasn't punishment. It was release, for them and for me. I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. House is vacant. Eviction complete. 3 dots appeared. Congratulations. Closing proceeds on schedule. I didn't feel congratulated. I felt finished. Done. Free. 10 days until February 10th. 10 days until I closed this chapter and opened another. I locked the front door for the last time and walked to my car without looking back. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, but they can be answered. They can be concluded. This one was. February arrived quietly. The eviction was complete. The house sat empty, waiting for its closing date 10 days away. I spent that first day of the month organizing my finances, reviewing Patricia's preliminary settlement statement, calculating exactly how much I'd clear from the sale. The numbers were concrete, satisfying. Approximately $380,000, enough to restart, enough to live comfortably, enough to prove that strategic patience pays off. I learned where they'd gone through Kevin, not by asking, I hadn't, but through the informal network that surrounds real estate. A former neighbor had seen the rental truck's destination, Frank Torres's apartment in Camden, New Jersey. 1 bedroom, 3 adults. I filed that information away without satisfaction or guilt. Just fact. Their path diverged diverging from mine. Patricia's email arrived February 6th. Closing documents for review. 17 pages of legal forms and settlement statements. I printed everything, grabbed my highlighter, got to work. Net proceeds after all fees, $380,247. I reviewed each line carefully, checking calculations, confirming accuracy. Everything was in order. Professional, final. February 9th, Kevin texted. Heard through the grapevine. Your son lost his job. Thought you should know. I stared at that message for a long moment. Felt the familiar pull of parental instinct wanting to fix, to help, to rescue. Then I remembered Christmas Eve. I typed back, "That's unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility anymore." Kevin responded with a thumbs-up emoji. No judgment, just acknowledgement of boundaries I'd established. February 10th arrived. Closing day. The title company office in Center City was all modern furniture and paperwork. The Hendersons sat across the conference table, their mortgage broker beside them. Patricia and Kevin flanked me. The title representative managed the document flow. Signatures in blue ink, pages turned, questions answered. "Sign here, Mr. Bell." I signed. My phone buzzed. Wire transfer confirmed. $380,247 deposited. Done. Mr. Henderson extended his hand. "We really love the house, the neighborhood, the bones, everything. We can see ourselves there for years." "It's a good house," I said. "My parents bought it in 1982. Lot of history there." Mrs. Henderson smiled warmly. "We'll honor that. Our kids will grow up in those rooms." "That's good. That's how it should be." I handed over the keys, shook hands, walked out into February afternoon. The Hendersons stayed behind, probably discussing their move-in plans. I had different plans. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dad, we have nowhere to go. Frank's place is too small. Della's falling apart. I lost my job today. Help us at least with a rental deposit. $3,000 would let us get a place. Please, Jared." Using someone else's phone to circumvent my blocks, I read the message 3 times, set the phone down, made tea, sat at my small dining table. 15 minutes I spent thinking, considering various responses. Harsh rejection, cold facts, explanation of hurt. Finally I typed, "I helped you for 5 years. Free housing, utilities, food, financial assistance with your debts. You repaid me by planning to discard me like trash. Time to learn to take responsibility for your actions. Don't write again." I sent it, then blocked the number, opened my contacts, scrolled through the short list, deleted Jared Bell, deleted Della Bell, deleted Frank Torres. 3 names removed, 3 connections severed. The next morning, I walked into a phone store. "I need a new number," I told the employee. "Family situation. They keep finding ways to contact me." She didn't ask questions. 20 minutes later, I had a new number that only 4 people knew. Patricia, Kevin, my bank, and the phone company. I walked out into February sunshine, phone in my pocket containing no ghosts from Christmas past. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was clean. February 10th ended with 2 realities. Them, crammed into Frank's 1-bedroom in Camden. Jared unemployed. Della reportedly falling apart. Me, sitting in my quiet apartment with $380,000 in my account, and freedom I hadn't felt in months. 6 weeks ago, we'd shared the same roof. Now we occupied completely different worlds. I didn't wish them continued suffering, but I didn't wish them well either. I wished them nothing. That's what boundaries meant, disconnection. That's what they'd earned, my complete absence from their lives. Tomorrow, I'd start building something better. Tonight, I'd enjoy the silence of a phone that wouldn't ring with desperate pleas or angry demands. The war was over. The cleanup began. The day after I blocked Jared's number and sold my parents' house, I started looking for an apartment. Not just any apartment, my apartment. A space I'd choose deliberately, not settle into by necessity. I made a list: 2 bedrooms, quiet neighborhood, modern building, reasonable rent. Manayunk appeared repeatedly in my searches. Historic area, walkable streets, river views. I scheduled showings for February 13th. The 3rd apartment, a 2-bedroom on the 4th floor with a balcony overlooking the Squirrelkill River, felt immediately right. "I'll take it," I told the building manager. She smiled. "You haven't even seen the 2nd bedroom yet." "I don't need to. This is it. Rent, $400 monthly. First, last, and security, $4,200. I wrote the check without hesitation. The sale proceeds made what would have been impossible for Jared and Della completely manageable for me. Move-in date, February 16th. I hired professional movers for $600. They transported everything from storage in 3 hours. Then I spent 3 days arranging my space, books on shelves organized by subject, then alphabetically by author, a system I'd maintained for 40 years. Desk positioned near the window for morning light, framed photos from better times, my parents on their wedding day, young Jared before the betrayal, each decision deliberate, creating space that reflected who I was without the weight of recent conflict. February 20th, I walked 3 blocks to Manor Young Library and spoke with the volunteer coordinator. "I'm recently retired," I said. "Taught history for 37 years. Wondering if you need volunteers." Her face lit up. "We've been looking for someone with college teaching experience. Our adult education program needs history courses desperately. I'd be comfortable with that. Could you start in March? Maybe 8-week course, once weekly." "I'd like that. It's been 3 years since I retired. I've missed teaching." That evening, I designed my curriculum. American history through primary sources, the Revolutionary period, letters from soldiers, colonial newspapers, Continental Congress debates, discussion questions that encouraged critical thinking. The intellectual engagement reminded me of who I was before becoming consumed by family betrayal. I was reclaiming that identity. February 25th, Patricia's email arrived. "Morris, thought you'd want to know. Your son and daughter-in-law signed lease on apartment in Camden. Not a good area, but it's what they could afford with their situation. I hope you're doing well. You handled a difficult situation with remarkable discipline." I read it twice, stood, made coffee, walked to my window overlooking Manor Young's main street, watched people going about their Friday evening, couples at restaurants, families walking, young professionals laughing, normal life. I was part of that flow again, not locked in conflict. I returned to my computer and typed, "Thank you for letting me know, and for all your help. I'm settling into my new place. Life is good." February 28th, I attended an informal gathering at Tom's apartment. A fellow library volunteer, 5 people in their 60s and 70s, retired teachers, social workers, librarians. Sarah poured wine. "After Henry died, I didn't know what to do with myself. The library volunteer work saved me, gave me purpose and structure." "I understand," I said. "I recently went through family complications, had to downsize, relocate. Starting over at 68. Tom raised his glass. "Starting over isn't the same as giving up. Sometimes it's the bravest choice." I felt something unexpected, tears threatening. "That's exactly what it is, a choice." Someone told a story about their grandkids. Someone else laughed. I realized I was laughing too. When had I last done that? Walking home afterward, I checked my phone. My contact list had grown. Sarah, Tom, 3 others from tonight. Patricia, Kevin, people I'd chosen, not people I was obligated to. That night I sat in my armchair by the window, coffee cooling in my hands, watching Philadelphia's lights emerge as February dusk deepened. Somewhere out there in a cramped apartment in Camden, Jared and Della were probably arguing about money or space or whose fault their situation was. I didn't know for certain, didn't need to. Their story had diverged from mine that Christmas Eve when I overheard their plan. This quiet apartment, this volunteer work, these new friendships, this peace was my story now. They'd wanted to discard me like unwanted trash. Instead, I'd shed their toxicity. I wasn't a victim, I'd survived. And that, I realized, sipping my coffee as streetlights flickered on below, was the best revenge. Living well, not letting them take my peace. The war was over, I'd won. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.